blank period. All my black, brown, and indigenous. Gotta holler if you really feeling this. Gotta holler if you really real enough. Other rappers is delirious. Yeah, it's really that serious. Better holler if you really feeling me. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna live in abundance. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna. I gotta keep it 100. We gotta stop all the stunting. You know we coming from nothing. Yo, you talking about money, you bluffing. We gotta do something different. We gotta change how we live in. We gotta do better for women. We gotta do better for children. We gotta listen to victims, whether Jewish or Muslim or Christian. It doesn't matter your religion. You gotta stand against the system, or else you just another villain. How you just sitting there chilling?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is again your host, Jamar Jabari. And if you love this content, please definitely like, subscribe. I am on every platform. And let me tell you something. I have a very awesome guest here today. His name is Markus Is it Schwartz? I don't want to ever mask your name.
You got it.
Okay, awesome. Pleased to see you again, brother. He is a world-renowned percussionist. He has a band that is called. Actually, I don't even want to massacre the name. You could just give me the name of the band.
Well, everything I do that's sort of I'm responsible for, or the so-called leader of, is under the umbrella term of Lakou Brooklyn, Lakou, and Lakou is a Haitian Creole term that we could get into later. But yeah, so anything that I'm doing is Lakou Brooklyn, but I'm also, a side man and supporting cast member on a lot of other people's projects who are far more renowned and talented than I am. So I'm very fortunate to be involved in a lot of different great music. So.
Oh man, you are amazing though. I have listened to even your self-proclaimed projects on Spotify, and I'm a percussionist myself, but I have nothing like, guys, when I talk about this on the podcast on just being a percussionist, I only have like a year or two involved. This man is a veteran and he is freaking nasty. I've saw him play multiple times, and let me tell you something, you are getting the education when you listen to that drum. Yeah. We did. Yep. And it was so much of a learning experience, and just showed me where I need to be as a musician, and how to get there. And you also do music classes as well too. You're an educator.
Yeah, but one thing I was just going to say, man, is that it was your spirit of inclusiveness and openness when I came into kind of your scene that allowed me to be able to immediately say, yes, I'm happy to do your podcast without knowing anything about it. That's just credit to your character. So thank you for being the person you are in the world.
Oh, thank you. I really do appreciate that. So I have Markus on to talk about not only just his career, which we're going to get into. I wanted to first also talk about what's happening in Haiti, and we're not going to get into like a full political conversation about it because we are not experts, and I think it's important that the dialogue is to be listening to what the working class people of Haiti want and to express how they feel, instead of just getting your idea of what this thing could be or what it could be about just off of the news, which always just gives their unbiased opinion 24/7, unbiased, very biased opinion,
uber biased.
Yeah. Uber biased.
Yeah, man. I mean, sadly, and I saw you posting about this on socials, right now you can't find out anything because nobody's talking about it in the mainstream media. It seems like
Right.
the world powers are gearing up, and let's not beat around the bush, so to speak, about the issue at hand, which is that the person who is sort of um, the person who's sort of
The leader.
the leader in quotes. I'm sorry, someone's calling my phone. I'm trying to ignore it. Ariel, he is illegitimate. The people don't want him there. The U.S. is propping him up, and he is the one that is both simultaneously calling for
Mm,
international security forces and creating
mm,
the insecurity that exists in the country in the first goddamn place. So talk about hypocritical. That's
mm,
like the epitome of hypocrisy right there. He's making the mess and calling
mm,
in support, saying he can't clean up the mess. And the people are taking to the streets daily. There is a huge security problem there. There is a huge gang and criminal element. They are very well armed, more so and more organized than the police. They're in cahoots with both the government and the
mm,
elite private sector who control all the business. They've essentially now
mhm,
shut down access to gasoline. There's not much electricity available on a good day in Haiti, but now it's way worse. Consequently, between the insecurity and the lack of resources, there's no schools. The hospitals are barely functioning, if at all. Kidnapping is still a very big problem there. So, it's not that there is not a crisis going on in the people's day to day lives. There is. But for this man to stand up and say he's trying to preserve democracy or represent anything about the interests of the people is, in my opinion,
mhm,
a crock of, caca, as they would say in Haiti. So that's just,
mhm.
my little five 5 cent headline there.
Well, hey, listen, you opened up a lot of information that a lot of people don't know. For instance, about the gangs also being affiliated with government influence. Um, a lot of people are hearing that the only issue that is the gangs and it's nothing else. And that is why a lot of people are I'm seeing being pro this invasion and they don't get what this invasion could mean. Haiti has been invaded multiple times by the US
Absolutely.
and other
Absolutely.
foreign governments.
Going back to the 1915 to 1930 or something, when the Marines were at the behest of a combination of Wall Street and the U.S. government on the ground in Haiti, manipulating the political environment, pillaging from the Federal
Mhm,
Reserve, literally stealing gold. I mean, there were some great articles in the New York Times a few months ago. Those of us who are daily involved with Haiti, and certainly almost all Haitians that I know are aware of this history already, but the vast
mhm,
majority of the rest of the world, and certainly, our ignorant citizenship here in the United States has no clue about that history. And it really is a continuum of an ongoing struggle today that has been going on, in one way or another, ever since Haiti claimed her independence and, fought so valiantly
mhm,
to overthrow the slave masters. And, there's always a narrative in the press. There's what we who have dedicated our lives to Haiti and to Haitian ideals talk about as the phrase. And that phrase is the poorest country
mhm.
in the Western Hemisphere. And you can't read an article in a major media magazine or journal or outlet without them using that phrase. That's sort of like a way to
Right.
paint Haiti as nothing more than a destitute, hopeless place that needs the help of benevolent neighbors to get their shit together. And that, as we know, is nonsense. Um, that's the spin, But I fight in my music and in
Right.
my activism around Haiti. I fight for a different phrase, and that would be the first Black independent nation in the Western Hemisphere, not the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. And
Right.
if you're talking about cultural riches, Haiti's one of the richest places in the Western Hemisphere. So, you know,
Mhm,
it's good to for us, especially in this time of book banning and labeling a true history of the United States and the Black experience in America as critical race theory and all the other stuff that's taking us backwards instead of forwards as a society. It's good to have these conversations. It's crucial to have these conversations.
Yeah, it is, and it's so different when you look around the world because people in other countries, they are able to have these conversations. We are literally like told as Americans that we shouldn't have these conversations because it makes people uncomfortable. Like the standard, we don't talk politics here or anything, but it really doesn't give us a chance to learn because it's the perfect message for them to just spew whatever they want on the news. And of course, we're going to just look at that first, not knowing that there are other outlets, which makes it so much easier to push that one narrative, which is why we always bring the music, politics, and culture here, because I feel like it all coalesces as one. Politics fuels musicians have talked about politics 24/7. Music is a part of culture. Culture gives us music. Without culture there would be no music, honestly. So all three of those aspects are just so important, and which is why we label it here in this podcast music, politics, and culture. But back to the subject at hand, I think it's also important that the West needs Haiti to never thrive because Haiti has exposed that do not have power in the past in 1804, that all men could bring out their own destiny and their own identity, and that is what Haiti gave as a sovereign nation. And not only that, they freed and helped so many other countries. And this is 60 to 80, I think 60 years before the Civil War. They were already doing the movement, a black abolition movement of fighting the master and freeing themselves before the Civil War happened. And we have to talk about that and remind people on why this is so important, because that cultural and colonialism tension is still here today, but practiced in a different way. Haiti is being treated as a colony when they are an independent nation, which this is a democracy that they should dictate on their own. But the U.S. still has the power to bring in a man that was not voted in, and and also back him when there's trouble. People should
Not
be
only was
very,
he
very, very cautious.
Yeah, not only was he
Go
not
ahead.
voted into his current position as prime minister in Haiti, the Haitian government structures, you have a president and a prime minister. The prime minister is appointed by the president. Um, Not only was this at best a shady transition of power, but he's also near the top of the list of suspects in the assassination of the very president that he's now, ruling by decree, because that man was murdered in his home. So it,
Wow, I forgot about that
yeah,
part.
yeah, it's a horrible situation all the way around. Eh, I don't know, man. I mean, at this point in time, I think a lot of us are just holding our breath to see what form this intervention is going to take, or this invasion is going to take. And holding your breath is, unless you're underwater, is never a good idea. But it's sort of hard to even know like aim, where to aim the resistance at this point. I think a lot of it has to be at the power structure and the governmental setup in Haiti, and a lot of it also has to be at U.S. foreign policy, and um, you know,
Right.
right now, a lot of more quote unquote progressive people might think that, oh well, Democrats are in power, and so our policies vis-a-vis foreign policy and immigration are going to be more tolerant, more humanitarian, and certainly in Haiti's case, it's not the case at all, as we saw at the Texas border last year,
No.
or earlier this year, I should say. And it continues, and Haitians have been being rounded up and repatriated. That's a kind way to say shackled and put on planes and sent back to their country
Yeah.
without due process, without people being able to hear their causes, and if you look at the route that a lot of these migrants who are some combination of chasing a sustainable level of existence for themselves and or fleeing persecution. And it's definitely some of both. If you look at the route that these poor folks have taken, coming all the way up, a lot of times through Brazil, walking all the way from South America to our border, it's
Wow.
heartbreaking. Yeah, it is really
Yeah.
crazy. It's not jumping in a boat so much anymore. The route is much more perilous in a different way and much longer and more fraught with passing through multiple countries without having documentation. A lot of Haitians are taking quote unquote shelter in the Dominican Republic, which also has a history of being very racist and very oppressive towards Haitians. So that's not, it may look like a paradise comparatively speaking, but it's not a friendly place for Haitians to try and make a life for themselves either. So, something's got to give, man. Something's got to change.
And just to because we're going to switch to our next talking point. But just to elaborate on what you said about the Dominican Republic, the colonialism and the separation is just so strong. And it's so sad seeing the tensions between the Dominican Republic and how they feel towards Haiti. And I've saw so many of my Dominican friends, but luckily there was more that were sympathetic to Haiti, but there was also some that were encouraging and saying, yeah, they need to get invaded again. And I got into a few spats. I'm like, you guys were invaded too by the Americans, and they killed 3,000 of you. They slaughtered 3,000 of you when they invaded Dominican Republic. You don't know what you're wishing. You don't see this as a solution. If you do, you are bugging. This is not a solution at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's nuance, I think we want to listen to the Haitians who are living in Haiti. I think that it's easier for the diaspora, the community outside the country, to look in and say, no, we don't want that under any circumstances. And it's an understandable gut reaction, of course. And I agree with it. But I'm also spending time listening to what Haitians who are living in Haiti day to day and dealing with the fact that they literally are homebound at this point. And that's what all my friends are saying. Unless you have to go out, you stay home. And the fortunate of us get to eat once a day. That is the reality of the majority. Even that's like the higher end of the curve in terms of living conditions. There are folks that are starving to death. So for us to sit back in the relative comfort of America, or the diaspora community, wherever that is, Canada, France, etc., and say, no, we can't accept this. I totally get it. I'm against it too. I saw what the United Nations troops did to Haiti when they were sent down there. They brought cholera and rape, in large proportions, fathered lots of children with women or girls as young as, definitely underage. So to think about, and now they're saying they don't want it to be a United Nations force. It almost sounds like they're asking for soldiers of fortune or a mercenary kind of troop to come down there. And that would be the absolute worst thing ever, because those guys are going to be indiscriminate. They're not going to have nuance. The UN troops already fired into neighborhoods where gang members were holed up and killed innocent people in the crossfire. These people forget it, man. So I get it, but it's also there is nuance there, and we have to understand that people are in crisis. I heard a story the other day that the level of hunger, the food crisis, this was on NPR, the food crisis level that the worst neighborhoods in Port-au-Prince, which is the capital of Haiti, which is an area called Cité Soleil that has, I don't even know how many thousands of people living in there, but it's a lot of folks. They said that the hunger food crisis has reached a level that has never been reached before in this part of the world. It's at a point where if there's not an intervention soon, and the problem is that food deliveries get hijacked because of the gang presence and because the gangs control neighborhoods, specific crucial passage points to get from point A to B. And the infrastructure in Haiti is limited both by mountains, but also just by years of neglect and lack of proper development. There's only, a handful of ways to get around. And this was going back all the way even to the earthquake 10 years ago, where food deliveries and water deliveries were getting hijacked. And we sent troops in there just to escort these things. That I think I could at least watch and say, okay, I get it. It's needed. This food's got to reach the people that need it. Medical supplies have to reach the people that need it. Water, clean water, which is a huge problem right now, has to reach the people that need it. So that's my take on it as a non-political person who cares deeply about Haiti and is trying to make sense of this situation.
Yeah, definitely. I respect that. And I love how you gave a breakdown of the history of the past even with UN. And a lot of people don't even, I know about it because I'm very intuitive with it, but that's because I chose to read about it. But a lot of people chose not to. And they don't know.
They were there for years.
And when they hear how does the things.
Sorry, man.
Sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I said I was just saying they were there for years.
Yeah, they were there for years.
I was there in
but
Haiti.
Onto a lighter subject.
Yeah, I was just saying I was there, and I saw them. I saw their bases. I saw them driving around in their trucks with their, automatic weapons, and I also saw footage of them dumping sewage from their latrines into the rivers. That was probably why cholera popped up in Haiti after not having been there for 100 years.
Oh my God. Yeah. And again, a lot of people don't know this history, and it's good that we talk about this. And I hope that people that hear this get a fuller understanding and not, I want you all to just not at all listen to CNN sometimes. Just look further. You got to talk to your fellow Haitians. Talk to someone that knows more instead of just accepting what narrative. But to go on to a lighter subject, this was a very great exchange here, and I hope a lot of people have learned a lot. And one thing that I love about your career, looking at it, is just how influenced Haitian culture is within your craft, and just the accent on your drums. People should listen to here. There's accent that is very strong that it's like a signature. I can tell when it's you. The same thing with the homie Eric from Light Words. There's a signature in his guitar where I can tell that it's him. And that's a level that takes a long time to get to. If you could touch on your journey on being able to be such one of the greatest percussionists in the world, honestly.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for that. I am constantly being humbled by the genius level of percussionists around the world. And I certainly don't count myself in that crew, but what I do aspire to, you touched on, which is to have my own voice on the instrument. And also in some way, I feel like if I can contribute to the tradition in some way, if I can have a legacy that contributed even something small, then I would feel like my life's work was accomplished. And, I feel like there's been enough signs of that happening along the way that I haven't quit yet. So not that I really have a choice, because it's something that I love so deeply. I really can't even separate it from other parts of who I am at this point. But I've been really deeply, fully immersed in Haitian music, traditional Haitian music, specifically Haitian drumming, for over 30 years now. As a young percussion student, it didn't take me very long to realize that taking a cross section of African and African diaspora uh, drum traditions, whether you're looking at the music of West or Central Africa, um, or how those musical influences traveled across the Atlantic and manifested in the musics of Cuba or Brazil or Puerto Rico or lots of other places, New York. In the Americas, in the United States, it manifested in a different way because of our draconian uh, crackdown on Africans not being allowed to play drums other than in Congo Square. And I think most people know that history. That was really the only place, and it was 1 day a week. And even that one spot, 1 day a week, gave birth to, jazz music and funk and a lot of other things that, have led to where we are today with our musical output as a culture here in the United States.
Hell yeah.
But I realized that Haiti, largely through a lot of the circumstances that we touched on, the lack of infrastructure, it being cut off from the West by the 1804 at the end of the Haitian Revolution, it was almost like some traditions that the Africans there used to fortify themselves spiritually, culturally, in every way, physically, to fight that war. A lot of those things revolved around drumming in one way or another. And a lot of those traditions, although they were shared and mingled to form what we call a Creole culture, they were also kept intact, more or less, in a way that is very special. So that by focusing solely my studies in Haiti, I was able to find things from so many different cross-cultural sources.
Wow.
That it was enough, and when I started meeting drummers from Haiti, born and raised in the traditions there, and learning from them, they all said the same thing, which is that there is no one person that knows all of the rhythms that exist in our country because it's too vast. It's too dynamic. It's too diverse. Every
Yeah.
little corner of the country has its own thing. So that, along with meeting some influential people fairly early on in my studies, who led me to go and travel and spend time in Haiti and start learning the language and start really embedding myself in the culture in a deeper way. That was sort of how I took that step into the culture. And I like to say, like, the door was open for me. I took a step in and then the door slammed shut behind me. And not in a captive way, but more of like, I've found my home kind of way. Like, I don't need to look any further. The generosity, the encouragement, the inclusion, the love, the mutual respect that I found in the community was really deep. Maybe some of that revolved around the fact that the first time I went to Haiti, it was during one of many ongoing rough times in the country. There was a coup d'etat. The military had taken over the government. There was a State Department warning telling all American non-essential employees to leave, and there was an oil embargo. So there was no gas really to be found except like on the street in the black market. There was fights breaking out at gas stations and, all the stuff that happens when people start to panic when their resources get taken away.
Right.
People call it rioting. I call it panicking. It's like, it's human nature, whether it's in New Orleans or anywhere else in Haiti, in Newark, in LA, when people have had enough and they can't take it anymore, they're going to start manifesting, physically that
Right.
frustration. So, that was when I went to Haiti for the first time. And I think there was a certain amount of respect that I got from people just for the fact that I showed up. It's almost, it was sort of in some ways, maybe an unfair advantage, but I take it. I'll take it. I
Why
had
do
the
you say that? Why do you say unfair
just
advantage?
I guess because I felt like I had a lot of like opportunities almost all to myself because there was nobody else around, and they were just happy
Mm.
that a Westerner, a white person, so to speak, a foreigner, a blanc, as they call it in Haitian culture, would come down there during this time when everybody was packing up and leaving if they had the option to do that. And then I kind of came down in an open-ended way. I'm just like, I'm here, I'm hanging, let's play, let's learn, take me around. And that's what happened. My first introduction to Haitian drumming and traveling around in Haiti was from a man named Jean-Raymond Giglio, who was part of a really influential Vodou jazz group called Fula. And he
Mm.
was just an amazing drummer, but also just super connected into this whole scene of what they call the samba movement or the musique racine. And what that means is like the samba, Samba in Creole, not samba, the rhythm from Brazil, but samba in Haitian. It's the Creole is like somebody who's a carrier of traditions, let's call it that.
Mm.
Somebody who speaks truth to power, somebody who writes lyrics that are potent, and somebody who's a cultural leader in their community is a samba. And there was this whole samba movement, which was basically like a Black consciousness movement, because
Oh, nice.
although Haiti broke those chains physically, the mental chains of colonialism are a lot more insidious. They're a lot harder to break. So there was, even up until, the 1980s, 90s, and even to today, there's still a stigma about fully embracing the African side of your culture as a Haitian, and especially what they call Vodou, which is the traditional spiritual belief system and way of life of the vast majority of Haitian people,
Hmm.
So Jean Raymond was really in the middle of this amazing community of dancers, visual artists, drummers, singers. And one thing, if anybody's spent time around the Haitian community, or even if you're just an art lover and you haven't been fortunate enough to know a lot of Haitians, Haiti is an artistic center of the
Oh
universe.
yeah.
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
they produce incredible art in many different manifestations. Um,
Hmm.
and they're extremely creative and, recycle anything and everything from garbage into artwork. Um, you know, they're able to produce incredible musical instruments like the drum you see behind me, using nothing more than a machete and fire and a couple of rough tools. No electricity needed. A lot of sweat and a lot of ingenuity and a lot of creativity, and also a lot of tradition being passed down, because those are African traditions. Obviously, anytime you're dealing with drums in the African diaspora, originally it goes back to one or multiple ethnic groups from the motherland, right? So um, that was really my start. They talk about, like, if you want to learn a language, that you do what they call an immersion course, uh, where you speak nothing but that language 5 hours a day and you're not allowed to speak English. I kind of did an immersion course into the whole culture when I went down there, because I was like thrust into this cauldron of people just creating and sharing and living together in a very communal way. And when I mentioned the Lakou, that word, that really implies sort of a communal lifestyle. It's a family compound, but it's sort of a way of life also. It's a way of living together. It's a way of preserving common knowledge. It's a way of living in harmony with nature and with each other.
Right.
I was able to kind of jump into that, and despite a lot of the challenges that were going on, travel around to the countryside, which is where you find really some of the deeper things. I was able to meet my teacher's teachers, which was an incredible thing. So I really
Oh, that's dope.
I sat at the foot of the elders, not in a figurative way,
Yeah.
in a literal way. When I say that, there's times at certain what they call dance or ceremony vaudou, where they're celebrating their ancestry and where they're singing and drumming and doing certain rituals that happen where I was able to sit in a chair and somebody's playing a drum, and instead of having a stand for the drum, I'm sitting there
Mhm.
holding the drum. I am the drum stand, and I have a master drummer standing here playing the drum that I'm holding. So not only is my face 5 inches away from the drum head while he's playing it with a stick in a hand, but he's talking to me and telling me what's going on, because in traditional drumming, there's the rhythm and there's the parts that you're playing, but there's also a larger context that informs what you play, when, and why. And you're communicating with dancers, and you're communicating with people who are getting the spirit, and you're communicating with ritual movements that have to be accompanied by a specific traditional drum language. And it is truly a language. And so by getting that, some of that kind of knowledge, that was my wait. That was
No, the gorgeous one.
the spirits. The spirits are talking. They want me to play.
Yeah, man.
Um,
Oh, I love that sound.
So-
Gives me so much hope.
from all of that, man, it was like it was like a graduate school, really. You know, first I got my bachelor's degree, and then I got a master's, and eventually I got a PhD, just in hanging out and in learning and in interacting with people. And it's been a long, slow, ongoing process, and it continues to this day. I'm still learning.
Yeah, and you have such a large uh this discography. I'm not saying that word correctly.
Discography, you said it.
Discography, yeah. Oh man. So you were Grammy nominated in 2019. The best Latin jazz album. That was the Caribbean project.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned earlier on in our talk, I've done some of my own things, but I
Mhm.
think one, and that's certainly like a whole uh, set of projects and musical focus and work unto itself. But I've also been really fortunate and have found a lot of fulfillment in bringing what I've learned from the world of Haitian drumming into different contexts and collaborating with other artists who may not have that knowledge, but may be a master in another language, like, you know, what they call jazz or Black American music or American classical music or whatever you want to call that. I like, Black American music. I like American classical music, but most people know it as jazz. So I don't shy away from that phrase either, or other styles of music as well. But in this case, yeah, I was very fortunate to get a call from a Grammy-winning saxophone player named David Sanchez,
Hey.
who's played with. I mean, if anybody's interested in jazz and you don't know David Sanchez, you should know him.
Yeah.
He's originally from Puerto Rico, based in New York for a long time. I mean, this guy was playing with Dizzy Gillespie when he was 19 years old, and has gone on. Had a large discography career back when music labels were actually supporting artists. I think he recorded 6 or 7 albums for Columbia back in the day when that was still a thing. He's played with everybody on the scene. Somebody who I grew up listening to, who I grew up checking out. And it was one of a handful of times when one of my musical heroes, actually, I was lucky enough to get to collaborate with them or play with them. But he was working on a project called Caribe, which was sort of connecting some dots between the traditions in Puerto Rico and the traditions in Haiti. People don't think of those two places together very often, but not only are they physically not that far away from each other, but they have a lot of shared history. Talk about being treated as a colony. Both of those places are still dealing with that today, as we know.
Yep.
But in terms of the African retentions in the Puerto Rican traditions, especially bomba and plena, which are ongoing and still widely practiced and still developing and innovating and changing. But there are some older styles where he said he actually heard some Creole words in some of the songs out in the countryside. And that, I think, was one of many things that kind of clicked for him. And also just, amongst musicians in the know, Haitian drumming's always been this sort of hip underground thing, with a lot of connections to jazz, both through New Orleans and the Creoles that came through New Orleans back in the day, but also through some jazz drummers like Max Roach and Art Blakey and Elvin Jones, who were checking out a very famous Haitian drummer back in the day named T-Wo. And T-Wo had a couple of albums of him playing solo drums that were passed around some of the jazz drum heads back in the day, and they would sort of hip each other to that recording. So in any case, David took an interest in Haiti, and he traveled there. And he started writing original music based on his very deep and organic knowledge of bomba and plena and jazz, but also from some of the stuff he was hearing in folkloric field recordings from Haiti. So he reached out to me, and we ended up doing this record. I was a part of it, along with a really amazing cast of other musicians, one of whom I knew already, who is a really incredible jazz drummer of Haitian descent, whose name is Obed Calvert. And Obed is he was in the San Francisco Jazz Collective for a while, but he's now in the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra as the drummer with Wynton Marsalis. So he's kind of like got that chair. It's like probably one of the best gigs out there in the world of jazz music. So Obed's an old friend of mine. We've played together a lot in various other bands. And I think he probably put in a word for me with David. But, I think my name was starting to get out there in certain circles. So David called me and came over to my house, came to my studio. We collaborated, we talked, we shared recordings. He started showing me what he was working on, and that eventually led to this record. And some touring. We just played. They actually dedicated the National Jazz Festival that happens in San Juan every year. It's a pretty big festival. For a long time, it was like the Heineken Jazz Festival. I think they have different sponsors now. But this year they dedicated the whole festival to David, and they had this big tribute to him, and he brought Carib, and we were sort of like the headliner of that festival, along with some pretty illustrious other artists. So that was pretty amazing just to see his country acknowledging him in that way. And, he's still a relatively young cat because he started very young. He's my generation. So
David Sanchez is a bad motherfucker, let me tell you.
Yeah. There's two saxophone players from Puerto Rico who I've always loved, and they kind of started young together and then kind of went like this with their careers. The other guy is also both Grammy winning and MacArthur Genius Grant receiver. His name is Miguel Zenon. And the two of them played together on some of David's earliest records that had a big influence on me. There's one in particular called Malasa that sort of...
I gotta check that out.
Yeah, Malasa kind of tells the tale of sugarcane and molasses harvest, and, in a musical way, sort of the history of who's working in the sugarcane fields and how they got there. So in his own way, talking about the legacy of enslavement of Africans and Africans in the New World and that whole thing. But it's all done strictly, musically. It's not, I don't believe there's any lyrics, but certainly you can kind of get the vibe from reading the liner notes and listening, but it's just a really beautiful recording. Now I was also really, really fortunate to land in a band with Miguel Zenon recently, who's been another one of my heroes. So getting to work with both of those guys who are very good friends with each other, and they play very differently. One plays alto, one plays tenor, but they're both kind of just these super inspiring musicians just to be around. So, there's definitely times when I've had to pinch myself to where I've gotten based on where I started and my journey.
That's absolutely dope. And and I encourage people to definitely check that out because it is such a great project. And also, since we're getting down to the wire, let's talk about it. The new album that you have out. Um, the it is. I haven't gotten a chance to hear it yet because I listened to your other stuff, but I'm definitely going to check it out. It's called Kesa. Is
Yeah,
that how you pronounce it?
Kaisa.
Kaisa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kai means house. Kaisa means this house. It's a extract of a lyric from a traditional Haitian folkloric song, which basically says, "This is a house of the spirits." Uh, so, Kaisa, like I said, I've had kind of my own own ongoing project as well, that more recently has taken the form of a quartet. I'm the only percussion player, and then I bring in usually some other combination of a horn, bass, whether it's upright or electric, usually upright bass, and guitar. And so this is my second recording of what I call the Lakou Brooklyn Quartet. They're both out on a small audiophile label. So it's a little hard. You can't stream either of these things online in their entirety. You could go to my website, lakobrooklyn.com, or you could go to the website of the label, which is Soundkeeper Recordings. Amazing engineer named Barry Diamond, and he recorded my band with one microphone, completely live in an acoustically sympathetic space. So he basically took the sound of my music and found a physical location that he thought would be best conducive to recording very organically, much like they recorded radio back in the 1940s, like one microphone for the whole band. So the way that you create your stereo mix is your position left to right, and the way you create your levels is how close or far away you are to that microphone. So needless to say, there's no studio tricks going on. There's no cutting and pasting and redoing your solo and, chopping a piece from this. You got to come in. You got to be well rehearsed. You have to be listening. You have to be a very sensitive, dynamic player. He came to a live gig that I had done some years ago and said, I think your band would really work well with my situation. So what I'm doing. So he invited me to do one. My first record was called Equinox. And then I changed it up this time a bit. Equinox featured a trumpet player named Jean Caz, who's an amazing Haitian American trumpet player, currently first trumpet in Michael Bublé's band, but also plays a lot of jazz.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he's touring all these big stadiums and, got his face up on the Megatron and stuff like that. Nice. when he's taking his solos. And then the second one is with a saxophone player named Godwin Louis, who's also a Haitian American, incredible alto sax player and composer. Godwin is out there playing with the best of the best on the jazz scene these days as well. So I was really lucky to get both of those guys on my projects. But yeah, you can find them on my website, and you can order them to download from soundkeeper.com, soundkeeperrecordings.com.
I'll make sure I'll add that in the discussion, not discussion, but the details below, soundkeeper.com. Yeah, listen, this whole thing of just the way that you guys recorded, and because everybody does cut and paste now, and was it difficult, to do it that way? Or did it just flow so simple you didn't feel that you had to retouch anything?
I'm sorry, there's somebody knocking at my door. And I'm the only one home, so I'm gonna have to run up and get that in a second. But
oh, okay.
It's a great question. Yes, it was challenging. I don't know if there's a way to pause for a minute and I could just go
let
this guy in. Can we do that?
Yeah. No problem.
All right. I will be back in like 30 seconds.
Okay. Yeah. Let me tell you something. There's a lot about percussion that people don't know. In my opinion, I feel that Americans don't really appreciate the levels of percussion and how difficult that shit is and how great it is. And we need to bring that back. I just got to say that before Marcus comes back because I'm not going to edit this out at all because it's important that I say this that, yo, listen, like percussion is, people should dive into it. It's really, really good. It's a lot to learn the history, the culture, learning how these instruments were created. They may look simple to you, but when you play them, you're like, wow, this is actually very complicated. For instance, like the maracas. Maracas are very complicated to play, guys. And they use them here for the kids. And I always get mad when I see that. But that's just the percussionist in me that's just like, oh God, how about you teach these kids some rhythms? Um, here he is, he's back.
Sorry about that, my friend.
No problem. I was just talking to the audience about how percussion is just so underplayed here in the American culture, and there's just so much you can
Yeah.
just learn. So many instruments, like even people create their own instruments out of percussion, like Cecil, like if I say this name right, from Brazil, dope ass history about percussion and just learning on how they were made. Just talk about the drums and stuff. We use those drums to bring out rebellions and stuff. The drums were banned, as you talked about before. They were not allowed.
It's very true. And, like any traditional music, but I feel like because of the spiritual nature of percussion, and especially African percussion, it's even more deeper in this way. What the thing I'm talking about is sort of the idea that traditional music incorporates language, history, culture, spirituality, so many things, So once you start peeling back the layers, it's just deeper and deeper. And, I like to say it's like the better swimmer you become, the deeper the ocean gets, because you can go further and further into it. And that's kind of what music is in general. But yeah, the world of percussion is, I had this quote. I've had one foot on the West Coast and one foot on the East Coast for years. That's sort of my family history anyway. So I lived in California for a long time, and there was anywhere you go in major cities around this country, especially in places like Chicago, Detroit, the Bay Area, certainly New York, Miami. If you're looking into the drum communities, there's always going to be a legacy of elders that have taught the youngers, because it's an oral tradition. It's passed down from person to person, and one person affects many. And then those people each affect many, and that's how it spreads, and that's how it stays alive.
Yeah, I was explaining that to my girlfriend yesterday because we were watching Drumline, and she was shocked that the main character, Nick Cannon, couldn't read music. And I was like explaining to her, a lot of musicians are like that, but in particular drummers, because it's like you said, it's an oral tradition. That's how I learned from Mario taught me how to play, and he showed me the techniques and everything. We didn't never read any music, we just played.
There's been attempts to get it down to, impose a Western aesthetic onto the music. And it's imposing something that's not a natural fit. There's no way to capture feeling and vibration on a piece of paper and pen,
right?
And there's a lot of very subtle things that happen in drumming. There's what we call ghost notes. There's syncopation. There's things that you can see and feel, but you can't necessarily hear them. So if you're trying to learn just from a recording, you may get some of it. If you're trying to read from a book and listen to a recording, you might get a little more. But until you sit and use your eyes and your ears and your heart to pick it up, you're not going to get all of it, because there is something that needs to be transmitted live and direct, you know.
Right.
But what I was going to say is one of the elders, even back when I was, you know, a young student, there was a guy out in the Bay Area named Yagbe Onilu. That's a Yoruba word, and he's actually of Haitian descent, but he also is part Cuban, and he also spent years traveling back and forth to Nigeria, which is, he's very, very deep, especially in the Yoruba culture.
Awesome.
So I saw a quote from him. He's an elder, and he's somebody that has a lot of students, and that he lectures extensively on sort of African spirituality, centering from the drum and from music in general. And he wrote that sound is power, and the first sound we hear is the pulse of our mother's blood. Drumming is the musical expression of this primal power, and rhythm is a means of organizing sound into specific energy formulas to harmonize the mind and the body. Chanting, rhythmic breathing, and drumming form an ancient technology for directly synchronizing the mind-body complex, creating conditions for psychological, physical, and emotional healing. A drum is a voice, and when it speaks, we must listen and honor the message with our best and noblest self, for it is a voice with great power, and it is a voice that is a gift to us from a greater being. And I thought that was he's sort of a poetic cat, as you can tell. He's a real
God,
scholar.
that's deep.
He's a real scholar, but he's also a master drummer and a culture bearer, you know. So I give respect to Chief Yagbe. And wherever you go in those communities, you're going to find people like that. And, you know, what you said before about getting information from the Haitian community is a very good thing too, man, because I find that a lot of times we're segregated into our own little scene, you know. I've met so many people in Brooklyn that have told me they don't know any Haitians. I'm like, how can you not know any Haitians and you live in Brooklyn? There's
Right.
literally 100,000 Haitians living in Brooklyn. You know, if you're in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and you don't know any Haitians, you need to get out more. You need to expand
I know
your
a lot
circle,
of Haitians
man,
in
you know?
Bridgeport.
It's just, you know, I just threw those two out as examples for me and you, you know, but it's true, man. You gotta interact with your communities, and that's where you're going to get the real information. You're not going to get it from CNN or MSNBC or New York Times or, you know.
Yeah. Well, Marcus, I don't want to take any more of your time. I want to thank you so much for coming on. We're getting down to the wire.
Cool.
You are definitely a breed that we need a lot more of in this world, because we just do, and which is why I am so privileged that I've come to have met you and saw you play and listen to your music. You definitely have had a huge inspiration in my life, especially on the percussion level. I don't think I ever told you that, but I just wanted to like give you your flowers. Thank you so much, because it's so important to keep this alive and keep it branching and keep it going, because like you said, it's oral tradition, and we don't want our oral tradition to ever die out, ever.
Yes, and you know, shout out to Eric Rabaska and Light Warriors for bringing us together in the first place.
Yep, definitely.
I appreciate that very much, man. I'll take my flowers when I can get them and send some back your way. So we'll stay in touch, man. Keep up the great work.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Marcus.
All right,
have
man.
a good day, brother.
You too.
And for everyone that's listening, definitely check out the link below that is going to be on the description at the bottom of Anchor, to support the show. No amount matters. It could be $1, $4, $10, whatever your heart content to. Definitely support the show. Helps me bring out more content, help me bring out more people, and better content, better stuff, more cameras. I got a new camera. Shout out to the person that donated to help me get a new camera. So it all goes to the show, and you get more real conversation like we just had just now. So again, without further ado, this is the climax, and thank you so much for listening. and have a very, very lovely
Blank period, yeah. On my black, brown, and indigenous. Gotta holler if you really feeling this. Gotta holler if you really real enough. Other rappers is delirious. Yeah, it's really that serious. Better holler if you really feeling me. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna live in abundance. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna. I gotta keep it 100. We gotta stop all the stunting. You know we coming from nothing. Yo, you talking about money, you bluffing. We gotta do something different. We gotta change how we live in. We gotta do better for women. We gotta do better for children. We gotta listen to victims, whether Jewish or Muslim or Christian. It doesn't matter your religion. You gotta stand against the system, or else you just another villain. How you just sitting there chilling?